Alright guys, Will Levy from willlevy.com, here with my mate Kedrick, who's here in Melbourne today via Malaysia, and just hooked me up with his sweet t-shirt. Check it out at kedrickcorn.com. Alright, we just had a question for the group asking about the overhead squat assessment. And so what we'll do is we'll run it through real time. Now I've just done a session here with Kedrick, but I haven't seen him squat. We just did a deadlift session and some other horrible lower body stuff. But so this is running this in real time, my first time watching him squat. So if I was going to take this through as though Kedrick was a client, so I'd explain to him, alright, Kedrick, what I want you to do is pull that stick up so we've got 90-degree angles. Yep, so hands probably just in a little bit. Sweet, spin it up overhead and press it straight up. Good, get your feet shoulder width apart, pointing straight ahead. Alright, and keeping the arms locked, I want you to drop right down into a squat, keeping the arms overhead. Right, and come up, and go again. And up. Sweet. And I'll get you to spin side on to the camera and do the same thing. Good. Again. Beautiful. And you can relax for a second. Alright, so as you can see, Kevin's got a pretty sweet overhead squat. If we were doing that as an FMS, he probably gets a 3 there. He moves pretty well, and if we're going to be nitpicky though, and for the purposes of this video we will be, here's what we're looking at. So we just get you to go again, Kedrick, flip it up, just facing the camera, toes point straight ahead, and go again. First thing, what do we see? You wanted to get those feet out a bit wider, right? And that's probably already pointing us towards something I was thinking of. Turn the toes straight ahead. He keeps wanting to turn the toes out. Drop down to your squat. See these feet turn out as we go, drive up. Right, so first, and there's nothing wrong with that, that's his comfortable squat pattern, that's fine. Right, but for the purposes of an assessment, you just relax there, for the purposes of an assessment, and if we want to think what potentially could be a limiting factor, and let's pretend this is a little bit more dramatic and maybe that it's limiting his squat, first thing that's pointing to me is some sort of ankle restriction. Right? One we'll address really quick as well. We saw from the side on one, you could say the stick comes slightly forward. That would be being very picky with Kedrick, but that's something you'll see more commonly with most people. That's looking at a thoracic extension limitation, right? So then we go and address that where we do. Maybe we do some T-spine drills, some breathing drills, whatever modality you want to use to address that, then come back and see if that improves the stick position. But with the ankle, there's a couple of things we're looking at, whether this is a mobility or a stability factor in terms of the squat overall. With the ankles, easy one, let's shoot you back to the plates here, Kedrick. Get your heels up on the plates. Right, and if you use anything to chock his heels up, we just happen to have some plates lying around. We don't have all the equipment up in this room. Toes point straight ahead, right, because that's where you don't want to go. You like having your toes out. Bring that stick back up overhead. Good, and drop into that squat. Okay, so what do we see? Much more comfortable. It's got a little bit deeper, and the feet and the toes didn't have to move. And that's probably going to happen with anybody because we're giving them extra ankle mobility. But it was probably quite noticeable with Kedrick. He tends to go for that slightly more externally rotated position. Actually watching some stuff as he moves through the day, he tends to pronate a little bit. Again, not saying there's necessarily anything wrong with that. If he isn't in pain, it's probably not an issue. But just something to be aware of. We could say that perhaps he could benefit from some additional ankle mobility into dorsiflexion. Right. What we can also see with people is if there's a depth issue. Now, even without the overhead squat, just in a regular squat. So you can just come forward and drop into a squat however you want to. Right. Now this can be an assessment. As you can see, he gets down there nice and comfortably. Depth not an issue. So come back up. If we turn his toes straight ahead and feet a little bit narrower. Right. He tends to like to do one or the other. Either turn the feet out or get his heels out wider. So that's keeping where he doesn't really want to be. Even turn them in a touch more. There we go. Right, so that limits his depth, right? And as we've already seen, he probably does have a slight ankle limitation. But there's something else we can look at as well, which is stability. So come back up, let's just for the purpose of this pretend that his ankles weren't the factor, right? And he only gets to that depth even with his ankles turned out or with his heels raised. We can also look at stability. So what I'm going to get you to do, Kedrick, is hold this, and as you squat down, you're going to push it out with you, all right? Keeping those toes straight ahead. Right, so we're not giving him that extra ankle mobility. Let's see what this does to his depth. Right, look at that, probably a little bit deeper. just come back around again, turn to face me. Let's do one without, toes straight ahead, not turned out. Go down to your depth. Good, and you can see even here, he wants to put those hands out in front. He's looking to get some load in front of him. Come back up with this, go for it. Right, probably gets a little bit deeper. And again, we would expect that with most people anyway, come up. But just think about, from a mechanical standpoint, what's that doing? When we put the load out in front, right, so as he squats down, puts the load in front, right, he's got a long lever now. He's got load out in front. What does he have to do? He has to resist falling forward by engaging that anterior core. He's going to stiffen up through here. That gives him some stability. Can't say the shoulders much. That's going to be providing some stability. When the body sort of senses as it's got that stability, everything's safe, everything's a-okay. It's going to let him use his maximal amount of mobility, right? Mobility isn't necessarily an issue of mobility at the joint. Sometimes mobility, what appears to be a mobility restriction, can just be a stability restriction. His body is saying, look, I'm not comfortable that you're safe using all that mobility, that you can't control it. So instead, we're going to restrict that mobility, all that full range of mobility that you might otherwise have, and we're going to put the brakes on. So providing him some artificial stability, this might let us say, okay, if he's improving from there, let's go and target that stability work in whatever way that might mean. It could simply be using this squat pattern, using some press out squats, some goblet squats, some more anterior loaded squats, and might be doing some direct anti-extension work, working through plank progressions, fit pull rollouts, and whatever other progressions you want to go from there. Some sort of carry variations even, anything to light up that anterior core, and then go through a training phase, come back, reassess, see what got better. That's it.